All right, let's dive into one of the most crucial topics for any UPSC aspirant, the President of India. Is this office just a ceremonial post, a rubber stamp, or is there real power behind the title? Well, we're about to break down everything you absolutely need to know, from the super complex election process to the president's huge range of constitutional powers. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by understanding the president's role as the nominal head, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that unique election. After that, we'll explore their powers, how they can be removed from office, and finally, we'll wrap up by looking at why this office is so important for the Indian Republic. Okay, first things first. To really get a handle on the presidency, you have to understand this basic difference between the title and the actual power. This single idea is right at the heart of India's whole parliamentary system. And this slide lays it out perfectly. Think of it like this. The president is the de jure head, which means the head by law. They are the ceremonial throne, the ultimate symbol of the nation. Every single piece of government business is formally done in their name. But the de facto head, the one who's actually in charge day to day, holding the real executive power, that's the prime minister. They're the one at the desk making all the big calls. So even though the role is largely ceremonial, its symbolic weight is just immense. The president is our first citizen, a living, breathing symbol of national unity. And here's a little something for all you aspirants out there. One day, your very own appointment letter as a civil servant will have the seal of the president on it. That's the ultimate authority you'll be serving under. Now, for what is, let's be honest, often the trickiest part of this topic for aspirants, the election process. It's definitely not a simple public vote, so let's break down exactly how our first citizen is actually chosen. So the first question that probably pops into your head is, hey, why don't we, the people, just vote for our president directly? And that's a great question. The framers of our Constitution had some really solid reasons for going with an indirect election instead. For starters, imagine if the president was directly elected. They'd have a huge popular mandate, right? That could create a rival power center to the prime minister, and that would just throw our entire parliamentary system into chaos. Second, since the job is mainly ceremonial, doesn't really make sense to have a massive, incredibly expensive nationwide election. It's just not practical. So an indirect election just fits the president's role as a nominal head much better. So, who actually does the voting? It's a special group called the Electoral College. As you can see, it's made up of all the elected MPs from both houses of parliament and all the elected MLAs from the states and from the union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. Now the key word here, and this is a classic exam question, so listen up, is elected. Nominated members have absolutely no say in this vote. The voting system itself is also pretty unique. It's not a simple winner-takes-all kind of deal. We use something called proportional representation by means of a single transferable vote, or PRSTV for short. What this really means is that voters don't just pick one person. They actually rank the candidates in order of their preference. This is my first choice, this is my second, and so on. And this is where it gets really clever. If no candidate gets a clear majority of first-choice votes, the person with the fewest votes gets eliminated. But their votes aren't just wasted, they're transferred to whoever the voters put down as their second choice. This whole process keeps going, just like you see here, until one candidate finally gets enough votes to win. The whole point is to find a consensus candidate, someone with broad support, not just the most popular person. But wait, there's another layer of complexity. Not all votes are created equal. This chart shows it beautifully. The value of an MLA's vote is actually weighted based on their state's population, using data from the 1971 census. It's a brilliant way to make sure there's a balance of power between all the states in the union. And that's why an MLA from a big state like Uttar Pradesh has a vote worth 208, while one from tiny Sikkim has a vote worth just 7. So even though the president is a nominal head, they have a massive range of powers given to them by the Constitution. Let's really dig into the scope of their authority, which, you'll see, touches pretty much every part of our government. Okay, first up, executive powers. Here's the deal. Formally, every single executive action of the government of India is taken in the president's name. They are the final seal of authority for the entire executive branch. This means appointing the prime minister and their whole council of ministers, state governors, the comptroller and auditor general, the attorney general, basically all the top jobs. The president also directly runs the union territories and has the really important power to declare and manage scheduled areas. That's a huge responsibility. All right, next up, legislative powers. And here's a fun fact that actually surprises a lot of people and is a favorite exam question. The president is an integral, inseparable part of parliament, right alongside the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. They can call a session of parliament to order or even dissolve the Lok Sabha completely. They give the opening address every single year, and most importantly, no bill passed by both houses can ever become a law without their signature. And check this out. When Parliament isn't in session, they can issue ordinances, which act like temporary laws. It's a massive power. Now, that power to sign a bill also includes the power to veto it. There are three kinds: the absolute veto, where they just reject a bill flat out, the suspensive veto, where they send it back for another look, and then there's the famous pocket veto. This is where the president can just do nothing. They take no action, leaving the bill in limbo forever. President Zail Singh famously did this with the controversial Indian Post Office Bill back in 1986. And the list just keeps going. The president also has judicial power, like appointing judges and granting pardons, diplomatic power as the face of India to the rest of the world, military power as the supreme commander of our armed forces, and, maybe the most serious of all, extraordinary emergency powers. But with all of these incredible powers, there have to be checks and balances, right? How can a president be held accountable? And what if the office suddenly becomes empty? Let's take a look at impeachment and what happens next. The ultimate check on their power is impeachment. Now, what's fascinating is that the Constitution only gives one reason for removal: violation of the Constitution. But here's the catch. That phrase is never actually defined. That means any impeachment is a unique, sort of court-like investigation that's carried out by Parliament itself. The whole process is designed to be extremely difficult. As you can see, it needs a resolution passed not just by a 2/3 majority of who's there and voting, but of the total membership of both houses. That is a seriously high bar to clear, and it's there to make sure this powerful tool isn't just used for political games. And it's really useful to compare our system to the one in the US. Notice how the grounds in India are intentionally vague, unlike the very specific crimes listed in the US Constitution. And look at that majority. That 2/3 of the total membership in India is way stricter than in the US. It makes our impeachment process one of the toughest in any democracy on earth. So what happens if there's a vacancy, say due to death, resignation, or removal? Well, the Constitution has a very clear plan to ensure continuity. A new election has to be held within 6 months. In the meantime, the vice president steps in. If they can't, the Chief Justice of India takes over. There's a clear line of succession, making sure we always have a head of state. Okay, we've gone through the mechanics, the powers, the procedures, all the nuts and bolts. But let's end with the most important question of all. Beyond what's written in the Constitution, why does the office of the president really, truly matter? When it comes right down to it, the president is the living symbol of our republic. In a country with such incredible diversity, they are the one person who stands above all the partisan politics. They don't just represent the union government. They represent every state, every citizen, and the very idea of a unified India. So we've explored the whole constitutional framework that defines the office. But beyond all the rules and all the powers, what is it that truly makes a president great? What qualities of character, of wisdom, of conscience can turn a figurehead into a moral compass for the entire nation? That's something for you to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.